but education in general is just teaching another group of people a concept. And right now, I think what's happening in the online space, where we have a lot of coaches and a lot of people that are doing, ebooks and digital education or education online, all of that could be easily leveraged for education-based contracts and grants, because we're already doing it. A lot of you in your position to do your work requires educating. And so it's so easy to seamlessly transition into contracts and grants just based off of what you're already doing, okay? And for some of my nurses especially, y'all need to be scooping up these education contracts and grants, because you already do it. And that's an easy extra $100,000 a year. Welcome to the Contracts Collab podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Coach Ogo Okweme, and thank you so much for joining us in this thought-provoking podcast, where we're going to break down the strategies that you can use to maximize your influence, your impact, and your income over the next 12 months. We are breaking down the strategies, the exact strategies that large corporations have used for years to impact their communities and build their revenue streams to the $1 billion mark. We're going to show you exactly how you can leverage contracts and grants from the government and other funding agencies to blow your business up, blow your impact up, not to mention maximize your income and revenue sources, and actually start to build something we like to call the infinite profit and wealth plan. So stay tuned, grab your notes, grab your pen, because you're going to want to write this down. Welcome. So in today's episode, we're going to talk about part 3 of the types of community impact contracts that you could be winning with your business. So today we're going to talk about education contracts. And these are one of my favorite types of contracts and grants, because they, honestly, now that I think about it, they are the lowest barrier to entry contracts and grants where you can position yourself to win. Now, when I say lowest barrier to entry, that means it usually is pretty easy to qualify as long as you adhere to what they're requiring. It's not anything stringent or overly complex. However, when we see contracts against where there is a lower barrier to entry or where more people qualify, it also means the competition is going to be higher, and you're going to have to bring unique approaches to how you go after it and how you position yourself to win. So today we're going to dig deep into that. We're going to talk about what education contracts and grants are, why they're the lowest barrier to entry, why so many people can get access to it, how you can get access to them, but more importantly, how do you position yourself to win? Because as we move forward, and with our current climate, with the changes in the political atmosphere, with the changes that are happening on the global level, you're going to have to be able to stand out and position yourself to win. So let's get started. So I got my handy dandy notes here. Yes, I write on the back of my mail, y'all, because I don't know where my notebook is right now, but I wrote on the back of my mail. So anyways, we're going to dive deep into it, and clearly I got a lot to say. So let's start off with what are education contracts and grants. Education contracts or grants, simply put, these are contracts and grants where the government or the funding agency, remember we talk about government contracts and grants, we also talk about funder contracts and grants, where it can come from philanthropic, foundation, corporations, etc. Whoever has money to give. Money is green, y'all. But when they set out a contract or grant where it's centered around education, it's because there is something that they have realized that the public doesn't know. It's something that they realize that the public should know, needs to know. And the fact that they don't know, and if we don't do anything about it, we would continue to have issues in the community. We would continue to have disparities. Diseases will continue to propagate across the place. And simply put, just educating the public will lead to drastic changes. So education-based contracts or grants are amazing starter contracts and grants for those of you that are getting into this for the first time. These are the types of contracts and grants that when you're coming to our collaborative contracting community, you're going to see me push you towards these a lot, especially in the beginning when you're first getting started, because it offers you the opportunity to not think about all the other complex things that the government may be asking for or the funders may be asking for, and just strictly focus on what is the education I want to deliver and how can I deliver this. This is a great contract or grant opportunity for those of you that are in the coaching space, for those of you that are educators naturally, for those of you that are in social work, for those of you that your position or what you do requires educating other people. You'd be surprised that I tell real estate agents that you need to come and scoop up these education contracts or grants that are geared towards improving the number of new home buyers that are in the community, because that's pure education. People don't know that new home buyer programs exist, and all you need to do is educate. And that's a good couple $100,000 right there, literally. HUD, the Housing and Urban Development Agency, gives out millions a year towards literally housing education. Real estate agents, y'all should be scooping that up because it exists. For those of you that are teaching around specific topics like diseases, there are a lot of training, education, contracts, and grants that exist for that, because we know part of why we have issues in the community is people just aren't educated and they don't understand what is going on. So sometimes when I talk about education, people automatically think, oh, are you talking about higher education? Are you talking about high school education, K through 12, undergraduate, graduate? That's a type of education, and we have contracts and grants centered around improving education in those spaces. But education in general is just teaching another group of people a concept. And right now, I think what's happening in the online space, where we have a lot of coaches and a lot of people that are doing, ebooks and digital education or education online, all of that could be easily leveraged for education-based contracts and grants, because we're already doing it. A lot of you in your position to do your work requires educating. And so it's so easy to seamlessly transition into contracts and grants just based off of what you're already doing, okay? And for some of my nurses especially, y'all need to be scooping up these education contracts and grants, because you already do it. And that's an easy extra $100,000 a year into your business or into your personal income, because some of you you want to start off as a consultant. You don't have to have this robust organization, and that's okay. My very first contract was an education contract. I was doing mental health education, and that was $198,000. Yeah, $198,000. And I had to do these trainings once per month. Yes, once per month. And I think the training sessions were only about an hour and maybe like 15 minutes Q&A at the end. Yeah, it was that easy. However, winning it requires a tactful strategy. You have to really understand what they're looking for and how to beat out your competitors. So we're gonna dive deeper into that so that you guys know what I did, but then also what you need to do, because the game has changed since I started. The game has really changed since I first started in contracts and grants. So now, one of the other key components of education, contracts, and grants is you have to have the ability to assess comprehension. So it's not just about saying, I trained 10 people, or I trained 100 people, or I trained 200 people. You also have to say, how am I going to assess their comprehension? How am I going to tell the government or the funding agency that, oh, my education worked, or my education made a difference? And that's what a lot of people don't think about. A lot of people are like, well, I just want to talk. I just want to educate. I just want to get the information out there. A lot of speakers do that. They motivate, they educate, they talk about different concepts and different key things that we need to know, which is great. But when you're trying to get into contracts and grants, it's all about how do you help the government prove that you are worth spending that 6-figure or 7 figures on. And they can't just say because you're a great speaker. That's not good enough. Some of us are great speakers. Some of us have to give the gab, but that's not good enough. You actually have to prove that the way you teach leads to comprehension for the target audience. And for those of you that are educators, naturally, you have to do that. You already have to do it. But some of you that are not used to that space, where you're not used to being assessed on your ability to help another person comprehend, that might be a foreign concept to you. So let's break it down a little bit. When you are assessing a person's ability to comprehend what you have taught, you have to be able to show, this is where they were before I started teaching them, and this is where they are afterwards. So in this space, we do a lot of little quick assessments or tests or quizzes. And so in the beginning, let's say, so let me use a practical example. I had a $500,000 contract to teach about Alzheimer's disease, right? And it required us to assess the ability of families and educators and healthcare professionals and caregivers. We had to assess that they understood what we taught and now know more about the disease because we had now taught them. So in the beginning of the program, we did a pre-comprehension assessment, 10 quick questions about the core pieces of what we're going to teach, and we had them answer. And then we tracked those scores. We set that aside. Then we taught all the information we needed to teach. We gave them the presentations. We taught them about everything that they needed to learn. Afterwards, we assessed them again. The same 10 questions that we assessed in the beginning. So we did a pre-post assessment, okay? Those of you that are educators, you know what I'm talking about. Those of you that are not familiar, then you're learning a new concept today. So pre-post assessments, great way to assess comprehension. And then we compared their scores. A lot of people were probably getting like 40%, 50% before we taught them. After we taught them, they were getting 70, 80, 90%, right? Now, when we applied for the contracts and grants that helped us to run this program, we had to tell the government, where is their comprehension going to be by the time we are done? So you can't just say, okay, I'm going to show that their scores went up. The government's going to also want to see a baseline required assessment level or comprehension assessment level that will then allow you to say this person has passed. The same way we do in school, y'all. I know some of y'all like, I hate school. I don't want to go back to school. I don't want to think about school. I don't even know why school taught us the way they taught us, but it's coming back. A lot of those structured training processes that we had to go through that we hated so much are now going to be required of you as you become government contractors and grant recipients, because you also have to be able to assess the comprehension of whoever you're teaching. So you have to say, what is the minimum score that you're going to determine to show that everyone has passed and has a good comprehension of what you taught? For me, my go-to level or my standard comprehension requirement level is 90%. Some people have told me that that's a little bit of reach, because you're essentially saying everybody must score an A, because 90 to 100 is an A, right? Everyone must score an A in order to pass. I look at it as, I think I'm that good of a teacher that everybody's going to get an A. You know, I've seen some individuals win contracts and their assessment minimum comprehension level in order to pass was 80%. And I think you also have the ability to determine what's most appropriate based on what you're teaching. So because our Alzheimer's program was targeted towards the community, it was targeted towards families, caregivers, and just community members in general to be aware of the disease. It was a very high level type of class. You weren't digging into the biochemical reaction that makes the brain now develop Alzheimer's disease. We didn't do all of that. We more so were, how do we help you to understand that this is what could be happening with your family member, or this is what could be happening with that neighbor who tends to get lost. So it was very surface level. It wasn't something that you're going to now apply to med school afterwards. So because we knew it's going to be a very high level assessment or a high level training, then we could put the comprehension level higher. So 90% wasn't outlandish, it wasn't unheard of, it wasn't unrealistic, because you weren't learning anything too complex. But now when we did that same training for healthcare professionals, we did go deeper into the biochemical reactions that happen in the brain as that disease develops. We did talk about nutritional based concepts. We did talk about physical exercise. We did talk about the mental health implications for family members when it comes to caring for a patient or a family member with Alzheimer's disease. We went deeper. So because of that, we lowered the comprehension bar a little bit. Instead of 90%, we said 80%. But for me personally, in the work that I've been doing in this space, I don't think you should ever aim or target for anything less than 80%, because less than 80% to me, in my perception and with the organizations I've worked with and the programs I've run, less than 80%, I will start to question whether did you really understand the concept? Did you really understand what we were teaching? Did you really understand what we're trying to get you to master, or at least have a good, solid understanding of? Anything less than 80%, I think you could probably increase that bar. So if you are applying for your next contract or grant and it's based on education, I would say do not put your assessment comprehension level anything less than 80%, because that to me should be the minimum, 80%, okay? And so that's how I essentially run my programs. That's how I teach our community run our programs. And that's how you should as well. Then also, I also want you guys to also understand that it's not just about assessing their comprehension from the standpoint of, did they do a good job on the exam or test? Because some people are natural test takers. There's also assessing their ability to communicate. So depending on the contract or grant, they may be asking you to improve the ability of these individuals to communicate the concept that you just taught them. And you see that a lot with contracts or grants that are geared towards training professionals, health professionals, business professionals, etc. If there is a concept that is actually going to help them with the work that they deliver in the community. So it's not just the community member receiving the education. It is a train-the-trainer based education contract or grant where you need to train someone who will now serve as a trainer for other community members. Those types of contracts or grants are probably going to also require you to showcase how are you improving their communication skills. They comprehend the education for sure, but how are you assessing their communication skills? And when you see that type of requirement in that type of program, you want to now think about, okay, what can we do to have them display their comprehension? Not just take an exam, display it. So this goes into like role play. This goes into like demonstrations. This goes into like scenarios. Sometimes we might use like debates and have people debate a concept or debate a position around a concept. Or we may put them into like, we like to use technology tools and things where we might buy like a VR virtual reality headset and run a scenario where it requires them to act out something. So I'm giving you guys all these details because these are the types of details you want to put into your applications. That's going to tell the funding agency that you have thoroughly thought about, how do I not only assess comprehension, but how do I also assess their ability to communicate what they've comprehended, okay? And where you're going to now see a lot of these opportunities, especially moving into 2025, is going to be around our shortages in certain positions. So of course, number one is our healthcare shortages. So healthcare positions where there is a shortage of people or a shortage of professionals. Right now, I have seen multi-million-dollar contracts that are due exactly in January and February that are centered around improving or increasing the number of behavioral health professionals. So providing training programs that will help increase the number of people that either decide to go into the behavioral health profession or graduate into higher levels in the behavioral health profession or gain certification in the behavioral health profession. There are a lot of contracts and grants for that right now, right now. You'll also see that in the space of nursing. Nursing is also a big area, and I'm not just talking about nurses like registered nurses, I'm talking about the whole nursing ladder. So allied health professionals who are like certified nursing assistants, licensed practical nurses, they also are considered a shortage profession. So that whole nursing lineage, there are a lot of contracts and grants where it's centered around increasing that whole nursing lineage. And so you'll see a lot of opportunities in that space. I know, I am so sorry to interrupt this episode that is so amazing, but I needed to tell you about our upcoming conference on April 3rd to 5th, 2025. And it's called the Contracts Collaboration Conference. Yes, I know, the Contracts Collaboration Conference. And it's taking place at Gaylord National Resort in National Harbor, Maryland. And this is where we are bringing together over 1,000, y'all, listen to that, 1,000 business owners, corporate leaders, nonprofit leaders, political leaders, university leaders, and we're all coming together to address these community challenges, and we're collaborating on millions in contracts and grant opportunities. This is a once in a lifetime opportunity where you walk into the room with an idea and a vision. You walk out of that room with your partners and the blueprint for your next application that you're going to submit right after the conference. I tell everybody, I'm not the type of person where you come to conferences and we talk. We don't talk at our conferences, we get work done. Not only will you learn the strategies, not only will you get insights, we have one of our key speakers has been able to secure over $6 million in 30 days. Could your business use $6 million in the next 30 days? She's done it, and she's dropping the details on how she did it and how you can replicate the same. And the key to your success in 2025 is going to be collaborations. And where else to find the best collaborators but at this conference? So you want to be there. So you want to go to theccconference.com. Again, theccconference.com. Grab your ticket. We have 3 ticket tiers. You can come to day 1, you can come to day 2, you could do the 2-day package, or you could be VIP. You'll want to be VIP because VIP sells out fast. But you need to be there. I don't care what ticket you grab. You need to be there because this conference is going to make the difference in your business in 2025. And by this time next year, you're going to be in a significantly different place, and you're going to thank me for it. So let me see you there. Can't wait to see you there, and I'll see you there. You'll also see a lot of opportunities around certification-based programs where you're also increasing the number of people available in the marketplace where only a certificate is required. So we see that around like community health workers. There are a lot of contracts and grants. Like, as I'm speaking right now, I think there are 3 contracts and grants open in my state just around community health workers and increasing the number of people that get certified as community health workers. And if my state is doing it, best to believe many states are doing it because it is a profession where there aren't enough people getting those certifications and becoming or being placed in those positions, okay? So, and it's not just health. You also will see this in anything STEM related. So anything science, technology, engineering, mathematics. I see a lot of contracts around technology-based certifications. So increasing the number of people that are going into the tech space, increasing the number of people that are certified with certain certifications. So CompTIA, A++, Security Plus, don't ask me all the pluses and the minuses, y'all know. But again, these exist. But here's my caution for those of you that decide to do training in the IT space. Don't just train, or don't go just look for the contracts that are asking for training, but the training is geared towards an internal structure, or the agency is asking you to come in and do a training for us in our organization. You can go after those, but remember, I'm all about leverage. You want to target the contracts or grants that are going to position you to work with the community members, and that way the contract or grant becomes a marketing engine for your company. So people now see you. You become more visible to the community so that even after that contract or grant ends, the community still wants to work with you. You now have a pipeline of clients ready to go. So it's all about leverage. So if you go into the IT space and you want to do training in the IT space, be cautious about that and pick the right opportunities that give you the most leverage. The other example that's coming to my mind right now is looking at diversity, equity, and inclusion training programs. Yes, I know it's a DEI is under attack right now. And with the new administration, trust and believe me, we are going to move into an era where we see less and less of that. Now, here is what I'm going to tell you, and we're going to talk more about this in another episode, is DEI, the work in and of itself. DEI is just a term. There's a term that describes the work. The work does not stop. Because we know from a public health, community development, community improvement, community empowerment, economic development, whatever frame of mind you want to look at, we know that in order to improve a society, you're going to have to offer services and products that cater to the needs of that population, that are specific to the needs of that population, that are culturally appropriate for the needs of that population, that are even gender appropriate for that population. You don't expect me to give certain resources to a 12-year-old girl that you would give to a 40-year-old woman. It doesn't make sense for that place in their life. It doesn't make sense for where they are mentally. It doesn't make sense for their biological and physiological position. So naturally, we acknowledge that and we know that. Like it's not rocket science, it's common sense. So because we know that we still have to do that, that's how we operate. The same way I'm not going to give a cigarette to a 6-year-old, because it's not appropriate. Or I'm not going to talk about certain things because this is a 14-year-old versus a 55-year-old. I'm not going to talk to a 14-year-old about their Social Security benefits because they can't qualify for them anyway. It's not their time. So we naturally do this. We apportion out how we talk to certain groups based on where they are physically, mentally, biologically, etc. That is DEI work. And so even though you see that we're not going to call DEI, we're going to still keep doing the work. So we'll talk in another episode what you can anticipate new phrases or new things to be used in order to keep the work going or to make sure we're still giving people the right type of service. We'll talk about that in another episode. But for now, I want you to just keep in mind that the ability to understand and educate populations based on the appropriateness of what it is you need to deliver to them, those types of contracts will continue to move forward. They will look different, they will sound different, they will use different terms and terminology. It is what it is. In science, we continue to change terms. We call it A today, next week we call it B. It is what it is. You as a business owner, you just need to pay attention to the signals and to assess how are things changing. But those types of contracts and grants where the goal is to provide an appropriate level of education based on the particular needs of this population, they will continue to exist, and you need to be able to cater to that. Okay? So now, let's dive into how you're going to win these contracts. How are we going to win an education grant or contract? How are we going to beat out the big companies that get multi-million-dollar contracts every year just to teach us a couple things, just to run some training programs, just to provide this education to the public? And how do I tap into that? How do I get a piece of that $200,000 contract you had that you were working one hour a month? Sounds ridiculous, but the reality was I was working 1 hour a month on this contract, and it was amazing. I need to get another contract like that. It was amazing. Now that I think about it, it was amazing. Anyways, I digress. But so if you want to win, here are the steps to ensure that you win. Number one, and I talked about it already, pay attention to the climate. Pay attention to the landscape. Pay attention to what's happening in the business world. Pay attention to what's happening in the government world. Pay attention to what people are talking about. I tell everybody that those who win learn how to silence the noise. There's a lot going on around us. There's a lot that's going to continue to go on around us. The world is going to continue changing, but 90% of that is noise. 90% of that is a distraction if you allow it to be a distraction. You need to pay attention to what are people talking about and consistently overemphasizing we need to do. So if you think about, I'm going to use Alzheimer's disease as a hallmark example. Think about our senior populations. We have been talking about the silver tsunami for a long time. We've been talking about the baby boomers are retiring. There are so many baby boomers. We've been talking about we may not have enough Social Security benefits for when the millennials start to retire because we have so many baby boomers. These are all signals. What does that mean? That means that there is a huge population of older adults that are living longer. And because they are living longer, they need more resources. And because they are living longer, they are also experiencing challenges with navigating life. Navigating life health-wise, navigating life digital-wise, navigating life when it comes to their benefits and their resources, where they live, all of that. So therein lies an opportunity to educate. You're going to see opportunities around simply educating seniors around retirement benefits, how they should be saving for retirement, because what's happening, if you guys are paying attention to the news, is that a lot of baby boomers are coming out of retirement because they run out of money. They run out of money. So financial literacy is going to become a very big topic. Why are baby boomers coming out of retirement in order to go back into the working world in order to make a living? if the government makes any changes to how Social Security benefits are distributed, and I know as we move into the Trump administration, they've talked a lot about reforming that and how that whole division operates. I don't know what they're going to change. I don't know what changes are to come, but there may be changes. Every administration debates Social Security benefits. So if there are changes, guess what? People have to go out into the community and educate. They have to teach others about these changes. They have to make sure the public understands what is to come and the implications of what is to come, okay? You're also going to think about, well, because they're living longer, there are a lot of diseases that are more prevalent in the older ages of life. And a lot of those diseases we don't have a good handle on. We just don't have enough science around. We don't know what's happening and we don't know how to treat it, especially diseases that are increasing in prevalence rate. Prevalence rate is increasing the number of people that have it. So diseases that are increasing in prevalence in senior populations, but the science has shown we don't have enough information, we don't have cures, we don't have effective treatments. We are just managing. We just manage. We just figuring it out. Alzheimer's is one of those big topics. Diseases of the brain, we don't know enough about. So those of you that are interested or have experience with diseases around the brain and diseases that are linked to mental health and trauma, these are things that you're going to see and hear about more often, especially as we move into these older populations. And we're going to have more resources. Something that I learned about, because recently I went to a Department of Health meeting for my state. And I tell you guys all the time, you need to be going to these meetings, these community-based meetings, summits, conferences, and they're being held by your state agencies. You need to attend, because something that I learned that I didn't realize is that when you talk about childhood poverty, a lot of people are thinking about, okay, these parents, they aren't making enough money. They aren't able to provide for their children. These children are hungry. And one of our representatives and one of our state secretaries said, we in our state, we've realized that a lot of the poorest children, they don't live with their parents, they live with their grandparents. So now you've got a coupling of two huge issues. You've got child poverty coupled with the issues that come with living longer and with our senior populations. So it's a double whammy in one family. And it's so prevalent in our community that our state secretary is talking about it. So if I'm you and I'm sitting in that audience, I'm writing that down and I'm like, okay, let's investigate. What division is she in charge of? Let me look them up real quick. What contracts and grants come out of their office? When is their next meeting? Maybe I can get a one-on-one conversation with our secretary, or maybe I can get a one-on-one conversation with their staff members. And they can tell me more about what it is they're trying to do. Let me look up their strategic plan for 2025, because clearly, if they talked about it in the public, they've talked about it behind closed doors, and they've said this is a priority, and we need the public to know it's a priority. These are the signals that I'm talking to you guys about. But if you guys are caught up in all these debates about this and that, and you get distracted, you're not going to be listening for the signals that are going to help you plan out the next 5 years of your business. Pay attention, you all. Pay attention. The other thing you need to start thinking about is, because the landscape is becoming more competitive, more people are getting into contracts and grants. I love to educate, but I also understand the fact that I am educating means there's more competition for you all. And that's okay. Competition is healthy. And what's going to end up happening is those who are the most innovative will win. So you need to bring more innovation. You're going to bring innovation through your collaborators, and you're going to bring innovation through your program design. Who are you collaborating with? If this is a topic like Alzheimer's, where I am not the most skilled and I don't know the most about it, who do I need to bring to the table? Do I need to bring a behavioral health specialist? Do I need to bring a neuroscientist? Do I need to bring a neurologist? Like, who do I have access to in my vicinity? For those of you that are part of the contract collaboration community, y'all know that we have a slew of professionals with diverse expertise that you guys can leverage. So we're good. But for the rest of you that may not be in our community right now, and you are listening to this maybe for the first time, or you're still just listening to our content and getting yourself ready, these are the things you need to think about. So when you go to a networking session, don't just network with no aim. Network and ask yourself, who am I looking for? Who do I need to have in my Rolodex? Third, you need to make sure that you are also looking at how can I become more innovative with how I deliver these programs. Education is very simple. Education has a low barrier to entry. So I need to be different in how I deliver it. How will I deliver this in a different way for the target populations that I need to reach? If I am going to do more education for seniors around Alzheimer's disease, then how do I deliver this in a new, unique way? Because seniors aren't online. They're not always on Instagram and Facebook. They may not even watch this YouTube video. But how can I get to where they are in a very innovative, creative way that keeps them engaged, that gives them what they need, and I can now assess that they've comprehended? These are things that you guys have to think about. These are things we're going to always talk about. So as we move forward, the opportunities are going to skyrocket. Don't get me wrong. A lot of people are scared, and I'm like, nah, don't be scared. It's actually going to be the best time to be in contracts and grants. It is going to be the best time. People are going to be amazed at the level of opportunity that's going to exist. Like, just even if you think about the community impact realm, it's going to be amazing, but are you ready? Are you ready? So thank you guys for joining me today. I'll see you on the next episode, and we'll be talking about part 4 of community impact contracts and grants that you can win for your business so you can double, triple, and quadruple your income over the next 12 months. See you later. Wasn't that an amazing episode? Oh my goodness. So many strategies, so many details, so many nuggets. I am so glad that we're able to give these informations to you every single week. But more important than the information we give you on this podcast, we have even more available to you at our next upcoming conference on April 3rd to 5th, 2025 at the Gaylord National Resort in National Harbor, Maryland. This is our annual contracts collaboration conference, and we've been doing this for over 3 years now. That's amazing. And you're going to be able to be in the room with over 1,000 business owners, political leaders, corporate leaders, business leaders, university leaders, all looking to collaborate with you on over 250 million in contracts and grant collaboration opportunities. Yes, I am not joking. Over 250 million in contracts and grant collaboration opportunities. We are making that available to you in the room. So you are leaving with your opportunity, your partners, and the blueprint for your application, so you can go ahead and submit that right after you leave. What other conference can do that for you? But if you want even more details and you want to start preparing for how to get in this room and how to secure your collaborators and how to lead with your best foot forward, then you need to join us at our next pre-conference demo day. Click the link below, sign up and get registered for our pre-conference demo day, or you can go to careerhaven.com and get registered for our pre-conference demo day. We go even deeper, and then we give you insights on how to position yourself to be successful at this next upcoming conference. We can't wait to see you there, and more importantly, I can't wait to see you make the money and revenue you deserve and the impact you've envisioned in 2025.